Frances, it's so nice to have you in Gothenburg and in Sweden.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
You've written several novels, but not your latest, but your next latest novel, The Light Tree, was published this winter in Sweden. And it's one of only two children's and YA novels that had won both the Costa Book of the Year and the Costa Children's Book of the Year, the other one being Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass. And it's a truly amazing book and one of those magical reads that really stays with you forever after you read it. And I would just like it if you tell us about the story and about the protagonist Faith, this wonderful young girl.
The story is set in the middle of the Victorian period, the 19th century, and it's sort of a Victorian Gothic murder mystery with a strong weird element, fantastical element, but also it touches on gender, science, religion, and the nature of lies. And the main character is a 14-year-old girl called Faith, who is the daughter of a natural scientist. She adores her father and would love to be a scientist herself, but she's a girl. It's the middle of the 19th century. She meets discouragement at every turn, and even her father doesn't have any time for her ambitions, her dreams. When he is found dead, she is the only person who believes that he was murdered. She starts to investigate and discovers that this man that she has put on a pedestal all her life has this double life, these dark secrets. And one of them is a very strange plant. According to his notes, he believed that it was a lie tree. He believed that you could feed it lies by whispering a lie to it, then getting as many people as possible to believe that lie. He believed that if you did so, it would bear a fruit that you could eat to learn an important secret. Faith now has a secret that she would very much like to know, namely who murdered her father. And she wants to believe in the tree because her father did. She doesn't want to believe he was wrong about it. So she starts to use it. She starts spreading lies in this little island community. And as she does so, it starts to bring out her dark side. She discovers she's quite good at lying. And it also brings out some of the suppressed anger brought about by having to suppress her intelligence, having to play the good girl her entire life.
But how did you come up with the idea to the light tree? I must ask you.
The short answer is, I don't quite remember. I can remember where and when I came up with the idea. I often go for long walks because I find it gives me a break from my computer screen. It allows me to think things through, and it's a change of scene. And on one long walk, I was halfway across a bridge when the core idea came to me, the idea of the tree itself. And at first I had no idea what to do with this idea. I could sense that it was the heart of a story, but I didn't know what setting I'd be using. It was only when I started to think about it in terms of a period setting that the Victorian period immediately made sense. Because it is a time of hypocrisy, lies and secrets, a time when people were living double lives, where they were trying to create respectable facades and hide their real selves. And at the same time, a time when there was this quest for knowledge, this drive towards scientific discovery. So I thought this was a very interesting time to set my bizarre tree.
And this time, I mean, Faith's father, the Reverend Erasmus Sunderley, is a quite terrible character, but also very interesting because he sacrifices his career and ultimately his life to prove that God exists, although he himself is starting to doubt it. And his character illustrates the conflict of that time between religion and science, and the only explanation model being challenged by a new one. And
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, please,
no.
please go ahead.
I was going to say absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't know before I started researching the period was how big an overlap there was between natural scientists who were not generally academic professionals. They weren't usually in the pay of a university. They were usually gentlemen amateurs, people with a little free time, some money to put into the hobby. And quite a few of them were clergymen. I had not realised there was this overlap, because as far as they were concerned, there was no conflict. They thought that they were exploring God's creation, God's world, so that they could make all the wondrous details of it available to mankind. And then in about 1859, Darwin's On the Origin of Species was published, and at the same time a lot of geologists had discovered that the world seemed to be quite a lot older than people had been imagining. So evolution looked possible. And all of a sudden, these very religious men and men of science found themselves confronting evidence that contradicted a literal interpretation of the Bible, and certainly the origins of the world and mankind. And it turned their world upside down. And the Reverend Erasmus Sunderley is one of these clergyman scientists, and he does not cope well.
No, he doesn't.
No.
But speaking of research, because I mean, it must have been so much fun to do the research for the light tree. Would you tell us? I mean, how do you do it? Where do you go?
It is a lot of fun. I really enjoy the research. It is a bit like treasure hunting, because you find all these strange facts. You find out about craniometry, the strange outmoded science of skull measuring. You find out about post-mortem photography, which was this bizarre practice sometimes of photographing your newly dead loved one, because often a photograph had not been taken of someone in their lifetime, and it was the only way to have a record of what somebody looked like. To our eyes, it looks a bit morbid. I went to a whole seminar on post-mortem photography. But you find yourself reading up on and being surprised by all sorts of other things, like clothing and clothing maintenance, and realising how much trouble it was just to keep clothes in order. And you start to understand why Victorian women didn't move around very much, because otherwise they would be brushing mud out of their hems for hours. And things like transport and food, it gives you a sense of the time. But I also went and interrogated a friend of mine who has an archaeological background and knew all these interesting details about 19th century archaeology and paleontology, and she was very helpful and blew apart a lot of my preconceptions, so I had to completely change lots of my plot, and showed me old books on what people would do if they were delving down into cave complexes to search for archaeological finds, and the sort of candles they'd use and everything. So all of this was fun. It's quite addictive, and sometimes it's quite hard to tell yourself, okay, enough now, I am getting carried away.
I can imagine it must be really, really difficult too. But I'm thinking, you write about Faith, who is a very intelligent girl and who actually challenges society's rules on how young women should behave, and in her pursuit of knowledge. And so you give voice to a girl who would have been quite invisible in her time, and is invisible in the history books. But how do you find her voice? I mean, where do you start?
I think even when I was younger, I'd got something of a sense of that smothered voice from reading the works of female Victorian writers. I know certainly the works of Charlotte Bronte, who is quite an angry writer, left a mark on my imagination. So reading things like Jane Eyre, and particularly Villette, you get this sense of this claustrophobic, frustrating, stultifying, soul-destroying life of an intelligent young woman who has to suppress and hide her brains and her inner life. And similarly, I read a book called The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot, who was, of course, a female writer who had to use a male name to be taken seriously. And there is a character called Maggie Tulliver, who is smart and strong-willed and irrepressible, but the world has no place for a smart, strong-willed little girl like that. And you watch her grow up, her hit dead end after dead end after dead end, and ultimately her story is a tragic one. And all of these tales made me really angry. Also, I think one book by Dickens called Dombey and Son, there is a cruel father who does not take his daughter seriously, and in the book, the happy ending is that he sees the error of his ways and the two are reunited. I got very angry with him. I never really felt he deserved his happy ending. I think part of my brain wanted to hit him with a rock and throw him off a cliff. So this may partly explain the fact that the Reverend comes to a bit of a sticky ending. But yes, to get a sense of her voice, her inner life, I tried to read up a lot on the sort of certainties, the sort of teachings that she would be receiving on all sides all her life, and how she would internalize those, because we do.
Yeah.
If we are told something all the time, even if our gut instincts tell us that these are wrong, we still absorb them. They still affect our mind. And I very much wanted her to be a product of her environment, even if she gradually found ways to think outside it.
There is a terrible scene when her father explains to her why she can never study and why she will always be a liability. It's chilling. But she has a mother as well, Myrtle, who is. The portrait of her is brilliant, but it's also kind of heartbreaking, I think, because it's not so much has changed in that women today are still reliant on their physical attributes to compete and survive in a way that men aren't. And I like Myrtle. She's absolutely fierce. So, but would you tell us about her? And
certainly. When I was writing this book, what I did not want to do is write one where Faith appears to be the only female resisting or rebelling against the unfair gender power dynamics. I didn't want all the other women to seem passive and docile and submissive. Faith initially, she feels like a freak. She feels like an outsider, and as if she doesn't work in quite the same way as other girls and women. But as time goes by, she starts to understand the other women around her better and realize that they are all trying to cope with these structures. They're all finding their own solutions, and some cases trying to subvert these rules. And Myrtle, the mother that, to begin with, Faith has real problems with, is one of the women that she learns to understand better, and who very much is subversive. Initially, seen through Faith's eyes, Myrtle seems superficial, vain, coquettish, and always trying to win men over to do things for her, and Faith slightly despises her. And gradually Faith comes to understand that in fact Myrtle is doing everything she does to help the family survive, and she's in a very difficult position. She has very few rights, she has very few weapons. Pretty much all she has is good looks, charm, and the fact that she can make men underestimate her. So she uses these these powers of manipulation with ruthless pragmatism, and she is quite strong-willed and actually very clever, but just in a very different way from Faith. And towards the end, there is more of a mutual understanding and a coming together, which is good, since I think those two might actually be quite a formidable and scary team.
They certainly will be, I think. Yes. But you've written, is it 8 novels? Or
yes, that's right.
Novels. And The Light Tree isn't the most recent one, because A Skin Full of Shadows was just released in the UK. And would you tell us about your new book?
Certainly. A Skin Full of Shadows is, as you say, is really newly published. It came out in the UK just a week ago, and it's another historical fantasy. This one is set in the early English Civil War, so 17th century. And you could say that it's a ghost story. There is a young girl called Makepeace. She is the illegitimate daughter of an aristocratic house, though she doesn't know that at first. And she has inherited what you might call a gift, or possibly a curse. There is a place inside her where ghosts can hide and take refuge and be safe. Unfortunately, this means that various slightly mad ghosts can sense this, and she has terrible nightmares because of all these desperate ghosts trying to claw their way into her head, because while she is asleep, she is vulnerable. She does, however, make a sort of alliance with one ghost, and it is not a human ghost. It is the ghost of a very much abused, very angry and slightly confused dead dancing bear.
Oh, what happened?
Well, the ghost bear becomes her secret ally. Now, having a ghost bear in your head does not make life easy, because sometimes the bear takes over her body and it does not really know what to do with human bodies. It's a bit confused. But it is good that she has an ally, because her father's family find out where she is and come to claim her. And they are quite a sinister family. At first, she is just glad that they are taking her in. She has a roof over her head, and the nightmares have stopped. This is great. But they seem to have plans for her, and there is something about them that sets her instincts screaming. She gets the skin-crawling feeling from them that she does when she is in the presence of the dead. And in the end, she makes the decision that she has to run away from them, even though that means escaping into a country that is collapsing into war.
I really want to read this book, Frances. Oh, I'm sorry, but we have to say thank you for coming, and thank you so much, Frances. Yes.
Thank you.